Now today's video for you is part 5 of how to paint an Asian otter in watercolour. Now in this part we'll finally finish painting all of the white fur for this otter and also those fine looking whiskers. Now this is the 5th part of a 5-part video tutorial here on YouTube just for you to watch. This is one of my older lessons on my Patreon channel. So give it a go and let me show you how to paint realistic animals in watercolour. Let's get the brushes wet, shall we, and let's make a start. Right, okay, back down here, where were we? So working down the lower jaw, I'm going to come down to about here initially, because I'd like to kind of work in a curve so we know you've done all the jaw area, including going around the back here as well. So tiny marks. Now, this area down here, the lower part of this lower jaw, is in the shadow. Right, so what we're going to do, I'm going to get some more watercolour white, but it's going to add a little bit of water to it so it's a bit thinner. Okay, so we're working on the jaw area. This isn't white all the way, we don't cover everything because we've got pink up there as well. So I'm going to put a few little dots here and there and just get a few more odd ones in different angles. Just kind of vary them a little bit. I'm going to pull one out to there. There you go. That was brave, wasn't it? Be brave, just do it. Okay, that's one out there. And I've got to pull another one out there. And probably one around there. And probably even another one down there. I don't know. Good thing about this part is that you don't have to be precise. Nobody will ever know. So let's put a few around the front of that lower jaw now, just by the mouth. Because this is why it's quite white around here. In fact, it's very white around here because of the way that the light's caught this. And again, we'll pop some whiskers in as we go along. The whiskers won't be that visible because it's on a fairly light background when we do them. Got a few odd ones around there as well. I'll just pop them in, going at a different angle, just so it adds a bit more interest to this section. That's all we're trying to do. Okay, around there as well. Yeah. Okay, and probably a few more around here. I wasn't going to do the whiskers just yet, but we don't have to go back to this area, so I'll just quickly pop these in. Okay, and these whiskers below we'll do later on. Right, so let's continue down the face a little bit now, down the neck. So bring it down a little bit. So with this one, remember that you want to try and sweep these out so they taper out at the end. They tend to blend away when it's a bit thin, the paint, okay? So you want it to stand out a bit more, thicken the paint like you've just done there. So you've got these tapered ends coming out. And this eventually, a bit too white there, this eventually kind of blends into the rest of the neck then, but initially it needs to be kind of separate from this to there, which is what we're looking at. So right, let's carry on. Again, making sure we've got the right direction for the hairs and overlapping them as well as we go, so they're not all in the same line. Keep overlapping. Okay. So what I mean, if you taper the line out, then it's got a nice finished kind of tip to it, which is why you want to do that around here if you can. I can't always do that because it's the wrong angle, but just get them in there. Alright, and a few more around here, just kind of brighten that area up a little bit more. I don't want it completely white. I'm always making sure I can see all that detail underneath, which we can still see that. And then bringing that down as we go along. I'm leaving underneath the neck just yet because that's quite dark under there. So if you remember what we did with this area here, if you remember what we did with that? Yeah, we just kind of thinned the white paint down a little bit. Well, quite a lot actually. So it gives a suggestion of these little white marks, but it still sets it back, it's not too bright. So we'll need to do that on this section here as well. So all this dark is still there then, it doesn't cover it all up. Now that this line's covered that up. When it's washed down, this will still kind of show through a little bit. And we won't need much of it in there either. So it's only a little bit of white in those areas there, but kind of watered down. Okay, these are smaller marks now. Tiny marks. Again, keeping a constant check on the direction that all this goes in. Because you would think this would be all kind of samey all the way through, but it's not. It does vary. You know, the line width, like these are short lines now compared to up here. So these are fairly short. So there, and so they tend to go in this direction, so that way, if you know what I mean. But also a little bit curly in places as well. So I'm thinking about a quarter of a circle. So I'll just over exaggerate that a little bit. So that's little tiny versions of that around this area. Okay, so again, sticking with double cream all the way through. Okay, so I'll get a bit quicker here. This is how quick I would normally do this. What I'm doing is little circles. So I'm doing little circles like that. I'm catching it on the bottom of the circle as I go around. Okay, so that's basically what I'm doing. I've gone off the paper there, I just realised. So off your screen, so back on again. So that's all I'm doing, little circles. This is a bit more defined than below and above. Okay, so down there and up above slightly. Just move that up a little bit higher for you, so you can just see the blue masking tape underneath. So this is a bit darker down here, but the only way that's going to be darker is by putting fewer lines in. Okay, so that's just a few lines in there, not too many. Just so it's a little bit darker. Right. And then the same would apply to the top. So there's quite a few in here, it's like loads of little lines. But as you go higher up, they are a bit sparse, quite a few gaps in between, as you can see.
Also, don't forget to click on that subscribe button down below, and don't forget that bell icon as well, just so you'll never miss one of my YouTube videos.
Remember underneath the chin, it kind of comes out that way, and kind of like a curve, like so. Just kind of looking at the photograph there, making sure it's right. And to the top. I need this dark to show through, it's so important because I need to be able to show that there's obviously a lot of depth underneath there. Alright, so that'll do for that bit initially. Let's come back down and we'll try and get all this area finished now down this section. Well, we already know which direction to go into, which is pretty good. We've already got that kind of lined out ready for us, for all the detail underneath. So we know the direction the highlights are going to go in. Okay, keep working at it. I'm barely touching the paper. I know I keep saying that, but I am barely touching the paper. Just sort of skimming the paper as I go along. Instead of doing a kind of fine line like so very carefully, I'm doing it quite quickly, just catching the paper. That way you get a bit more of a kind of natural stroke. If you try and do it carefully like so, it's never going to be spot on straight or curved, so it's worth just to kind of just do it quickly with a quick freehand. If you're not sure with this, go to your test paper, have a play on there first, on your test paper, and just make sure you get it right on there first. Okay. So again, I'm going to come to probably around here at the moment because I need to get this thin down the white as we go higher up. So I'm just going to kind of come to this area initially. So we've got this where it kind of curls. Think about that half circle again. Barely touching the paper, just skimming the paper as we go around this circle. Still fairly white along the edge, so I can increase that a little bit around there. See, I can taper this out. Being left-handed, I can do that there. If you're right-handed, nah. If you're right-handed, just turn the border around, okay? Yeah. Okay, stop being childish, Paul. You are 48 after all. And then start on the shoulder. Again, I'm looking at the direction that these go in, because they go this way first, kind of curling outwards. Little tiny half circles. And they come downhill. And then they come down that way. And then, as I said, there's a bit of a dip here, so it kind of curls down that way. But smaller versions, so smaller hairs. can then go downhill like a waterfall. So kind of across, then down. Okay, and then as it goes higher up, it's more or less in one line. Cross them over slightly, obviously, as I said before, so it's not all too uniform, not all too the same. And then bring it out into the background, which then breaks up any hard edges that we got under there a little bit. Kind of takes your eye off them, which is after we did the background, obviously, when we end up with like a tide mark all the way around. So that'll kind of break that up by bringing a few off the edge. Again, keep looking at the photograph so you can see where you are on the photo, and you can see where, or the direction that these go in, and how much you need. This area, there aren't that many highlighted marks in there, because we've got quite a dark patch down that way. Okay, so you obviously make a little mental note of that when you're doing that. Otherwise you end up having no darks underneath, and there's no shape. It's just all flat, which we don't want it looking flat. As I keep saying, that's why we've got all this detail underneath initially. So I'm going to water down some of the whites. If I just show you that on the camera a minute, just bear with me a minute. Right, so this is my white here. So I've got a bit of water into there. So it's going to be quite watery now on purpose. So this is for underneath the chin. So when this dries, it won't be that visible. We'll see it, but it won't be that opaque. So it won't be too bright. So that's what we're going to use underneath the chin initially. So let's go back to the painting. Okay, so let's get a few lines in here first, using that mix, the very watery white mix. And you can see that when that goes on there, it fades very quickly. And you can't see it that much. You can see it, but as I say, it's only just visible, and that's what we want really, to kind of maintain that depth underneath. All this edge here will be broken up a little bit more when we start adding some of the kind of highlights, the whiskers, kind of into that area. So we'll do that shortly. But initially, let's just try and get some of these kind of fine lines in there. Don't completely fill it, just put a few in, just so it suggests that there's detail there. Okay, just kind of breaks up the line a little bit. Alright, so that kind of blends these two together a bit more now, doesn't it? The way it kind of works. Just by using a watered down white. Just over the top. Yeah, that's better. I'm semi-happy with that. Okay, so now our otter is nearly finished. Woohoo! It's nearly done. So what we need to do now is think about getting things like whiskers and stuff on.
Hi, my name is Paul Hopkinson. So what I do, I show you my technique on how to paint wildlife in watercolour. We go through a variety of subjects from dogs, cats, insects and even botanical subjects as well. And I'll guide you through this right from the beginning all the way through to the end for those final brushstrokes. You'll also find that with most of my videos you also get the outline drawing and that reference photograph as well. Every month we produce a PDF version, so a typed out version with photographs of that monthly main video. You'll get the PDFs for the months that you are a member. Now this is a very in-depth document with lots and lots of pages of information and instruction, as well as obviously the photographs as well. Now another benefit is that you get access as well to my private Facebook group. Now the good thing about my videos is that they'll be here 24/7. So you can watch them 6 months down the line, 2 years down the line, it doesn't really matter. They'll always be there. You can stop, you can play, you can rewind, you can pause as many times as you want to do so. So that will give us some ideas on what you'll gain from being a member on my Patreon channel.
I'm going to get a little bit more watercolour white. I'm going to use a little bit of water, but I don't want too much, so I'm just going to add a little bit to that thick paint there. Just so it's enough so I can paint a straight line, as I mentioned, without it breaking. When you load your brush up, make sure that you roll the brush and pull away. Okay, so pick up the paint, roll the brush and pull away. Then you end up with a nice point on your brush. You see, with this one, it's fairly thick, and you can paint a straight line, there with me, without it breaking. If I add too much paint, go directly into the neat paint, you find it breaks. So you want a tiny bit of water added to it, just so it's enough so it doesn't kind of break up a little bit when you're trying to get a nice white line. Right, so first things first, I'm going to start off at the top of the head. We've got one around there. So if it breaks up, just reload your brush again. Okay, and then that goes to about there. You can barely see it because it's gone onto a light background, but it's there. That's what matters, it's there. It's there, honestly. And then the same here and here. There's a couple on there. That's the 3 there, looking at it. Doesn't really matter. Nobody's going to compare it to the photograph when it's done, are they? Only you will know how many is there, so you can always add a few more if you want to. Doesn't really matter, does it? And then we've got some more here. I've just noticed there's some dark ones there as well, so I might put a couple of dark ones in there as well, or darker. Right, so burnt umberland black. I've just put a few. It's around the top of the nose, so one there. See, I'm barely touching the paper, and probably another one just there. Let's pop another one in down there. And another one down there. If you don't feel confident doing this, test it out on your paper first. So use your test paper and test it out on there before you go to the detail like this. It's having the confidence just to do a reasonable speed, not fast, but just a reasonable speed so it's not too jagged. That's all I'm looking at doing here. Right, back into the white. Okay, so the same again. As I say, you don't have to be exactly the same as a photo because they're all going to vary, aren't they? Yeah, that's starting to work. So these come down quite some way actually. When you're looking at the photograph, they come down to about here. They're very long. So you have to bear that in mind whilst you're doing it. Okay, so what we're going to do though, I think, is try and get the ones around the mouth first. Start from the top, work your way down, or whilst you're putting your paper or your hand into the wet paint as you go. Start bringing some new ones in. You can see the difference with the thicker paint. It does help. See, that's too much on that brush there. I'll zoom in a bit honestly on this one for you so you can see a bit clearer. Is that better? Yeah, I'd say so. Right, okay. So again, we'll go for that again, and we're looking at the one next to it. These all go in that kind of direction, okay? So, using the tip of the brush, bit of confidence is what you need on this one. Try not to go with the same line twice if you can help it. Sometimes you have to, I know, but try not to. And again, barely touching the paper. Oh, there's some very long ones going on here. I mean, this one goes all the way down to here looking at it. There's a few like that. So what I'll do, I'll get the one in here first. Okay. And then start to think about that long one. Some very long ones. As I say, I think what it is, there's one underneath here on the lower jaw, which comes down to here, and there's one on the top, but they seem to join together. So I'm just going to work on the top ones initially. So I'm trying to go on the same line if you can help it. Mine just broke away there. My paint was a little bit too thick. Just trying to get the right consistency with it when you do this. And there. Got my hand in the wrong direction now. Which is what I was speaking about earlier on. It's near enough. I'm happy enough with that, just about. We've got one higher up here, so I'm going to put my hand around a minute over the top of the picture. So we've got one which is underneath the eye here, so I'll just put my arm in my paint. Okay? I'll blame you guys for that. And that goes. Just the one. Like that. You have to make the sound effects, by the way, while you do this. And then that's the third one, a bit longer. If they're too bright, we can always dull them down a little bit afterwards. 3, 4. I've lost count. So this is breaking this kind of gap up, as I mentioned earlier on. When you get these in, it kind of breaks it up a little bit. Keep looking at the direction these go in, so it's roughly like that. The same again. The whiskers is a good way of finishing off the painting. When you see the whiskers go on, it really kind of brings it together even more. Still got these to go on here yet, which will pop in. A bit more. I think just get another one in there, just a little one I think. Just put an extra one in. And then we've got this big long sweepy one coming down as well. that one comes down to about there anyway. Then we've got a long sweepy one going around there and then down to here. Okay, so I'm using the curve of my hand when I'm doing this. That's because I'm left-handed, so it's easy for me to do it this way around, whereas these are fairly straight, so they won't be too bad, but if they were curved that way, I'd have to turn my board around. So I've got the curve of my wrist, the natural kind of curve. I think what I might do is just have one overlapping, and then that would be about it then, because they're all too much samey at the moment on there. Yeah, I'll just soften the end down a bit. And then we're going to go into the other whiskers. Oh. Okay, so I'm going to paint these in here. There's one, just about see it. And we'll put another one in there. There's two. These are fairly long, remember. I'll pop another one in there. That's 3. That's 4. I know you can barely see these. And then another one overlapping. 5. Because they are barely visible, as I say. They're not visible much at all, really. But they're going to be there. And they will be seen. They are noticeable when you look. 6, and then I'll probably put another one in there. 7, and just a long one there. Don't overdo it, don't put too many in, because it's easy to get carried away with it, really. Let's put a few more around the nose area around there, because they're fairly long. See, I'm not actually moving my hand before even touching the paper. I'm not touching the paper at the moment, but that's basically what I'm doing. Kind of forming a circle with my hand as I get the line in there. So I'll get a line in. See what I'm doing? Okay. But we exaggerate it a little bit. Okay. And that's it really. We have now completed an otter.
We've worked with a lot of white paint in this video, so I've popped a link to the top right, which is all about using black paint instead. I'll see you there.